It's Friday here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, which means we've got Jenna Harner. We're going to talk about what Kenny Pickett must do better against the Browns and their new defense under Jim Schwartz, their defensive coordinator. That and all of our Week 2 picks here on the Friday edition of the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things of the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making the Locked On Steelers podcast your first listen every day, because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. As I said before, we're joined by Jenna Harner. She's back on another Friday episode here. Jenna, it's always great to have you.
It is always great to be back. It's week 2, so the pendulum's going to swing in the opposite direction this week. Lots of exciting football ahead.
Absolutely. Lots of exciting football ahead. And let's talk about one of the biggest aspects of this upcoming Steelers game. And that, of course, is always going to be your quarterback, and Kenny Pickett. He had a really rough go at it against the 49ers, and he accepted, a lot of that role upon himself. He talked about it after the game. He's talked about it this week. We talked to him, I believe it was Wednesday, in the Steelers locker room when we spoke to him, and he kind of like let it out there, like, hey, I know I got to be better. We have to be better as a team, execution wise and things like that. And now he knows he's going up against a talented Browns defense that just limited Joe Burrow to less than 100 yards.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if you were going to play the video at this point or not. Nope. Ignore me. Just let me keep talking about this. Yeah, no, this is going to be a tough challenge for the offense and Kenny Pickett, because how does this offense respond after the goose egg we saw for the majority of that first half? And yes, they scored. Yes, they got the tempo going. Yes, that 2-minute drive at the end of the first half looked great. But for the majority of that game, we did not see the offense that we had seen. And people look to say the preseason. Yes, we didn't see the offense we saw during the preseason against backups, but we also didn't see the offense, Chris, that you and I are so used to seeing day in and day out at practice and throughout training camp. This offense just was unable to really get anything going. And of course, they were unable to establish the run, which was going to be a big problem because they were so far behind. But this is a huge challenge for Kenny Pickett. And this is a big way to see, too, can he respond? Because I think he's more than capable of doing that. We see him respond when he comes back from bad games. But this, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, I felt like this was probably the worst pro performance I've seen from Kenny Pickett, and maybe, honestly, even back to his college days, too.
I'd put it back there covering him at Pitt. I've seen him struggle in games, but I've never seen him be that flat out bad. I think the worst I've ever seen him collegiately was when he would go up against Clemson, and oftentimes that would just be because Clemson was that much better than all of Pitt's roster, and he just had to do so much more. And maybe that played into this as well, but he was a big factor in the Steelers' problems. Here was Kenny Pickett in the Steelers locker room earlier this week when we got a chance to ask him some questions.
Kenny, what do you feel like was the biggest adjustment you've had to make this week?
I wouldn't say it was too much of an adjustment. We just didn't play well. We didn't execute. It was nowhere near what we needed to be. So, keep the preparation the same. I thought the preparation for the week was good. It's just about going out there and playing well and executing.
Kenny, when you looked at your performance, was it throws you didn't make, or would you like to have a couple back?
Yeah, definitely want a couple back early on, especially. I think it's a different game if we hit some early on and put points up and just kind of keep the pressure going back and forth. But I need to definitely be a lot better. We as an offense will be better. I'm excited to get back out there Monday.
Do you think it was decision-making or just throwing it?
No, I was good with my decisions. It was just throwing in the execution.
Coach Tomlin during his press conference talked about how good Cleveland's corners were against the wide receivers for Cincinnati.
Yep.
How do you guys plan to attack that, combat that, go around that if you have to?
Yeah, a ton of respect for those guys, and great defense, great team. Held a really good offense to 3 points. So obviously it's a tall order, but we go out there, execute, play well. I'm confident we can go out there and put points on the board.
How difficult is it to replace Deontay, and what about these guys makes you confident that you could?
Yeah, I think it's by committee. Obviously, Deontay's a really good player, does so many good things for us, and was really kind of trending in the right way. I thought we had a great offseason and was doing great things in the game. Just now it's everyone's got to step up and pick it up. It can't just be one guy. But I have a ton of reps with everybody, so I'm confident they'll go out there and execute.
Kenny, you were
Quick shout out to Jenna for being the person who held my mic during that presser. She kind of came through, and whenever there's Kenny Pickett, if you're not first in line, you are fighting to get your microphone in there. But Jenna, I thought one of the more interesting things that he talked about here was about it being about execution, and noting, like Mike Tomlin noted on Tuesday, that the Browns have a talented secondary. Their top corners, Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome, were guys who stood up to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and now the Steelers are without Deontay Johnson, their number one option there. They activated Des Fitzpatrick off the practice squad while they put Cam Hayward on injured reserve. So he's probably going to be another one of the guys they can call up if in an emergency for the receiving situation. But man, I look at this matchup here. One of the things that Schwartz tries to do, their new defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, he tries to set up so many different man coverage situations where he's disguising it in ways because he's blitzing at you almost all the time on key downs. He's going to line guys up that are pressing, that are off, and he's going to switch who's in man coverage a lot to try to confuse you only for about 3 seconds, because that's all it's going to take for his overload blitzes to get home. That's where Kenny Pickett has to be ready this week, or he is going to take a beating.
And that's something, too, he talked about. A lot of the guys that we've talked to offensively throughout the week. I know Matt Canada also spoke about this earlier this week as well. But it was just lack of decision making. It was lack of execution. There were open guys. The Steelers against the Niners had the opportunity offensively to connect on some of those passes, and for whatever reason they just were unable to execute. Again, we heard from Kenny Pickett. Everybody in the locker room took ownership, saying, this was on us. This wasn't things that they were doing that we weren't used to. This was just us and a lack of execution. But your offensive line is going to need to stand up very tall in this task, because again, what Cleveland does defensively, they are coming at you with that pressure in those given situations on those very, I'm assuming too, weighty downs, as we like to hear from Mike Tomlin too. They are going to blitz in those types of situations. And can Kenny Pickett be able to just, I'm not saying collect himself, but can he make those quick decisions that he's going to have to make? Or else, again, Myles Garrett's coming beating down on you. And oh, by the way, both your top offensive weapons are covered by these corners in man coverage here.
Absolutely. It's a huge part of this here where, they're going to create tight passing windows and bring the pressure. So he has to be ready. The Steelers in this last game were 5 of 15 on third downs, 1 of 3. That's not a rate that the Steelers like to have. They like to be able to control the ball a little bit more. The Bengals against the Browns last week were 2 of 15. So this is going to be a serious challenge, winning on third down, making the right decisions in the right moments while the Browns are bringing heat at Kenny Pickett. Will he be able to handle it? We'll see as they play Monday night. But we have a lot more to get to here. Of course, we always got to make our picks on the show. You'll get all of our week 2 picks here on the other side of the break here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, with Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. But first, before we go anywhere else, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the app that you need to download right now to get the tickets fast and easy for any events that include Steelers games, Pirates games, when the Penguins are back, music events, concerts, comedy theater, anything near you. Game Time can help you find tickets in a fast and easy way and get amazing exclusive flash deals on those tickets. Game Time is an app you can download right to your phone. And even if it's up to the last minute, Game Time is going to help you find great deals. They even will give you a best price guarantee that cannot be beat in the business. If you find tickets to the same event in the same section and row for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference between those prices. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase, or go to their website, gametime.co. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. Jenna, last week I got the first double of the season, but I wasn't too good at things. I was 8-8. You were 7-9. here on our Pick'em League. By the way, you can join us. It's a public Pick'em League. So if you look on Locked On Steelers Pick'em League in ESPN's Pigskin Pick'em Fantasy Group, you can join it. Shout out to the 221 people we got playing with us right now. Also, shout out to about like the 10 different teams that wound up in first place. The best record from last week was 11-4. There were about 10 of you, but I have to single out one of them because one of you thinks you're a smarty. You came in here with a team name called Better Than Chris Carter. And yeah, you were, but you better watch out. I'm coming for you this week, and I ain't playing around. So whoever is better than Chris Carter, I'm letting you know you're not going to be better than Chris Carter for that much longer. Let's get into our picks to show how to be a bit better here. Jenna, let's talk about some key games here. Now, of course, Thursday night football, Eagles, Vikings, that's gonna be a big showdown. We skipped that because this is the Friday show, and that's happened by now. But if we dive right into our Sunday games here, there's a lot of intriguing matchups here. Of course, the Steelers will play Monday night football, and that's where everyone's going to be looking. But Sunday, let's kick things off with an NFC matchup, and that's the Green Bay Packers against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons open this game as 1.5-point favorites against the Packers. Probably something people don't think too often about, but their run game got busy last week while the Packers and Jordan Love got busy against the Bears. Who do you think proves to be more real here, Falcons or Packers?
Well, one, Chris, it doesn't matter what I think if you're trying to
look at you
get me.
yourself.
Woo, shield is up. But this one, there's a couple of them this week that I kind of go back and forth. I like the Packers, and I'm saying that very optimistically because I think that there were so many questions. Okay, it's now the keys are handed to Jordan Love, and now it's his car. He gets to do what he wants with it. And things looked really good for the Packers last week. Yes, it was against the Browns. Yes, it's a divisional rivalry, but I think that this optimism is going to continue. I know some of the offensive weapons on Green Bay are a little injured, so that might play a factor here, but I still like the Packers, and I don't entirely feel great about it, but I'm going with Green Bay.
I'm going with them too, just because I think for the same reason as you, they're going to just have the upper hand here, even on the road. Let's talk about the team they just beat. That was the Chicago Bears against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers open as 2.5-point favorites. All these odds, by the way, coming to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. But I'm going with the Buccaneers at home here, Jenna. The Bears looked abysmal last week. The Buccaneers, I thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. They actually looked good last weekend in their win. I think they continue that trend and beat the Bears at home.
Baker Mayfield, I saw something on Twitter the other day, and it was so perfect. It's like Baker Mayfield just needs to realize he's going to be like an NFL journeyman, and he is going to be exactly what teams need him to be when he needs to be that for them. I thought he looked really solid. I thought that Bucs offense played really well, and I, again, didn't expect that coming into the season. So, yeah, I'm going the Bucs here. I think the Bears just have a couple more steps to take before they're the team that I think they want to get to be. I don't think they're there quite yet. So, yeah, I'm going Tampa.
21-34 for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions. Indeed, an impressive day for Baker Mayfield. Let's go to the Seahawks at the Lions. You know, this would I would have had the Seahawks if they had won their first game against the Rams, because I didn't have the Rams being pegged as one of the better teams in the NFL this year. But the way the Lions just beat the Chiefs on the road, they're coming back home. They're feeling it. They got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson talking about wearing blue ski masks for all the Detroit fans. They're 4.5-point favorites. I believe in the Lions right now. They're going to keep winning against the Seattle team that's a little beat up right now.
I believe in the Lions too. And it was funny, just earlier I was talking with Jerome Bettis. We do our weekly Jerome Bettis show. And he was saying, he's like, he wasn't sure who to pick in this situation because this Detroit team also hasn't been known to handle success recently. I think it's a different regime with Dan Campbell. I think he has his guys so bought in. They believe in the process and they see it playing out in front of them. I also think the factor here of a West Coast team coming to play an East Coast team for that 1:00 game on Sunday is going to make a big impact. So yeah, I'm going the Lions, and honestly bring on the fun because they are so fun to watch. I can't wait for more.
Indeed, they are. A team that wasn't having too much fun last Monday night was the Buffalo Bills. They lost to the Jets, but now they get the Raiders. The Bills are 8.5-point favorites. That's a big bit of a spread, but the Raiders I have as one of the worst NFL teams. I think the Bills get back off the schneid and they get 1-1 this week. What say you, Jenna?
Yeah, this is a game the Bills absolutely need to win just to kind of get their confidence back, just to kind of, reinflate the sales in that way because of the way that they lost Monday night against the Jets with all that happened in that game. The Raiders are not fantastic. I think Josh Allen is going to play a much safer game, but I think that the Bills win this one and win it easy.
This next game here, it has an interesting line here. The Chargers 3 points favorites on the road with the Tennessee Titans, another West Coast team going to the East Coast here. But the Chargers, even though they lost, they looked very competitive and good against the Dolphins. Meanwhile, the Titans against the Saints, they lost 16-15. Tannehill threw 3 interceptions last week. I'm sorry, I can't pick the Titans so long as they're playing like that on offense. Give me the Chargers all the way.
I love the Chargers offense. I love that game against the Dolphins. It was just such a shootout back and forth and back and forth. And that's what I think Justin Herbert does. He just, win or lose, he is going to go out and put up big numbers. I think against a Titans defense that is just not what it's been in recent years. I think that they're going to have some success this weekend. So regardless of the fact, that it's a West Coast team traveling here, I like the Chargers. They just feel like a much better team.
The Colts are visiting the Texans, 2 rookie quarterbacks, first-round draft picks going up against each other. You got C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson facing off. The Texans, though, 1.5-point favorites, but I say forget the points. I'm going with the Colts here. The Colts played very well against the Jaguars, almost stole that game away. I'm going to give them the edge over the Texans right now.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I like Indy here just for what they bring to the table and also how they looked week 1. Again, a lot of people thought, oh, they were just going to roll over. Jacksonville was going to come in there and give them a handy defeat, but they made it a game. They were really competitive, and I think they're excited about a lot of what they can build on here. So I like Indy.
AFC North showdown that a lot of Steelers fans will be keeping their eyes on. The Ravens at the Bengals. Bengals 3-point favorites here after getting demolished by the Browns last week, while the Ravens did their own demolishing of the Texans. But I'm taking the Ravens. I'm sorry. The Bengals, they may have lost last week, but talking to our guy from the Locked On Browns podcast, Jeff Lloyd, one thing he pointed out that people haven't talked enough about was how in the first play of the game last week, the Browns got a hit on Joe Burrow where they kind of hit his hand, and that kind of impact, he was kind of holding his hand for the rest of the game. You have that with his calf injury or whatever it was that he hurt in training camp. I think Joe Burrow and the Bengals will be fine when it's all said and done this year. But right now with that injury and how they've looked collectively and the missing players they have on defense from last year, I'm going to take the Ravens getting an early win against the Bengals here.
Ooh, this is our first split because I go back and forth with this game. I've thought a lot of different things, but I think the Bengals know the offense they're capable of being, and I think they bounce back. Also, Joe Burrow in his career has played really well against the Bengals. I think obviously when you're the Ravens, you're losing a key playmaker in J.K. Dobbins. I do think they'll be able to at least attempt to fill that void, but I just don't see this Ravens offense clicking against this Bengals defense as much as they did and were able to against the Texans. I'm going Cincy, but I keep going back and forth with this one. This is going to be an interesting one. I think a lot of Steelers fans will be tuning into on Sunday.
I agree. Kansas City Chiefs, 3.5-point favorites on the road facing the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going with the Chiefs here. Sounds like Chris Jones is back, and it sounds like Travis Kelce is back. Those two things point me in their direction.
I could not agree more because, again, the Lions came out and beat them the way that they did week 1. I think when you have Chris Jones in there and when you have Travis Kelce in there and a guy who can, catch the football instead of every receiver that the Kansas City Chiefs had that weren't able to do that last week, I think that they get a win here. I think this will be a fun game, though. I'm intrigued to see how Trevor Lawrence can respond after that playoff loss to the Chiefs.
Absolutely. Last 1 o'clock game here. The Niners. No, excuse me. This is actually the first 4 o'clock game, so we're going to go talk about Niners Rams on the other side of this break here. We'll get to that as well as all the other games we have to cover here on week 2 of the NFL here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Jenna Harner breaking things down. But first, before we do anything else, we'll remind you this show is brought to you by BetterHelp Therapy Online. Life is full of twists and turns, and it's important to show up for yourself through all of them. But trust me, I've faced plenty of times in my life where I've tried to shoulder a lot of burdens, but I've found answers in my life thanks to the help from good therapists. And that's where BetterHelp Online Therapy can come in, because they'll help you find good therapists easily. And they'll assess your needs and can match you with your own licensed professional therapist in less than 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's actual professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist. With therapy, it can take a few tries to find the right fit for you. BetterHelp makes it easy and free to change therapists if needed, and they have a special offer for our listeners. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp.com/lockedon. We're also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy, where we can win up to 25 times your money on any moment of this football season. All you have to do is pick 2 to 6 players and guess more or less on their projected stats, and you can win money on any entry. Again, PrizePicks is an easy way to play fantasy sports. Instead of trying to pick the best lineup every week or trying to compete with all these other people, you're just competing with PrizePicks. You pick 2 to 6 players. If you think you know they're beating fantasy that day, you look at their projections. Are they going to score more touchdowns? Are they going to get less yards? You pick the projection there, you say more or less, and when you get that, PrizePicks will award you the money for your PrizePicks picks there in that situation. Also, PrizePicks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts, like Taco Tuesday, where they give you player projections up to 25% off for even more value. Download the PrizePicks app today, or goes to PrizePicks.com and sign up to play daily fantasy sports. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL, and you can use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL, code LockedOnNFL, all capital letters, all one word, and you can get a first deposit match up to $100. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Jenna Harner breaking things down. We're back to our week 2 picks here. Jenna, that big matchup I was talking about for Sunday, 4 o'clock, the Niners at the Rams. The Niners on the road, but 7-point favorites here over the Rams, who had an impressive win over the Seahawks. But I think that ends that we saw how good the Niners were against the Steelers. I think they keep riding that wave into this game.
Yeah, there's a reason the Niners were in the NFC Championship game last year, and we saw that play out completely against the Steelers this past week. I think the Niners are one of the best, if not the best team in football right now. I think that this is a game they win handily, and they just keep on rolling.
Absolutely. Let's move to your team, the New York Football Giants. They took a beating last week at the hand of the Cowboys, but they're on the road against maybe the team that everyone wants to play this year, and that's the Arizona Cardinals. They're 4.5 points favorites on the road in Arizona. Jenna, I didn't take them last week, but I think they bounce back this week. I think they have a lot to prove. The Cardinals are a team that's just struggling to make it out of there. I think the Giants get a dub.
I think so too. I think this is a huge bounce back game for Daniel Jones, for the run game, for the defense. And really, I can't even say it was the defense, because it was just the offense, and just, it was painful. I'm still not recovered from that. But hey, that's all right. I think the Giants get a bounce back here against a team that they need to beat, or else we'll have a lot of questions about them. But yeah, I think that they get this win in Arizona.
Now, the other game, the team that beat them, the Dallas Cowboys, they're playing a different New York team, and that's the Jets, and they're at home. But these are the Jets without Aaron Rodgers. They're going to be starting Zach Wilson. Now, here's the crazy thing. I'm picking the Cowboys, but they are 9.5-point favorites. I actually do think it will be within 10 points. I don't think it's going to be a 10-point plus victory. Whereas Aaron Rodgers won't be there, that Jets defense looks tough. And I think that they're going to slow things down for Dak Prescott and Tony Pollard and that offense. But the Cowboys will win convincingly so, I think, by an 8+ point margin, but not in the 10. So 8 to 9 points is right where I have the Cowboys. Jenna, what say you?
I am with you on that. I don't think that they cover, but I think that they win this game. I think the Jets know they have a lot to go out and prove, and they want to say, hey, look, we are still as close to that team as we can be without Aaron Rodgers, which I don't entirely believe because of the caliber of your quarterback. Yeah. But I do think that there's a lot of good on that Jets team. I also think the Cowboys defense is incredibly legit, and they are going to make Zach Wilson's day a nightmare. So I think that the Cowboys get this done, but I think this is more of a defensive battle.
The Commanders at the Broncos. Broncos 3.5-point favorites. I'm riding with the Broncos, but I'm not too comfortable about it. I just think that secondary is going to cause too many problems for the Commanders. But what say you, Jenna?
Yeah, I think that the defense in this game is what does it for me too. I think Denver's defense is just more solid. And if there's any bright spot, anything in this game where I'm like, okay, this is a matchup that I like, I do like that defense. But at the same time, the offense is just I'm going to be intrigued to see how we see more of Sean Payton's influence on this offense. But right now, I think Denver's defense is going to be what gets it done in this game. But this is going to be ugly, and it's going to be close.
Last 4 o'clock game, the Dolphins at the Patriots. The Dolphins 3-point favorites. The Patriots gave the Eagles a tough run, but I'm still riding with the Dolphins. I think their offense is too explosive for what the Patriots do, and I think they'll pull out the win. But will the Patriots pull off an upset here, Jenna?
No, I'm going with Miami. I think what we saw from Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle last week, I mean, that offense is so explosive. Tyreek wants 2,000 yards on the season, 2,000 receiving yards, and I think he will absolutely be able to get there. Like, it's just not even, you're like, yeah, no, this makes sense. This checks out. I do think the Patriots defense will limit him, but also it's Tyreek Hill. You really can't do much in terms of stopping him completely. So I think the Dolphins get this done. But I think this one's interesting, especially because with, division rivals, they always seem to play close games.
Saints at Panthers for Sunday Night Football. The Saints are 3-point favorites, and I'm taking the Saints because their defense looked for real in their opener. They pulled off the win. And the Panthers, I think that Bryce Young in the offense, they just got a little bit of ways to go.
Yes, this is actually a double check. This is the second Monday game. There's 2 Monday games.
Oh, there's just 2 Monday games. I didn't even see that. Thank you for clarifying there.
The wonkiness of this week. You are so welcome. Steelers fans, we're so locked in to the fact that it is the Steelers and the Browns on Monday night. No one else can possibly play on Monday night. This is a good thing. This game is also on Monday night because I don't think a lot of people are going to be watching this one unless you're a Saints or a Panthers fan. Both of these teams to me aren't going to make a lot of noise at all this season. I think the Saints defense is better, but I'm going with the Saints, but this one could go either way. And not great.
I feel you here. Now let's get to the game everyone's waiting to hear about. That's the Browns at the Steelers. The Browns, 2.5-point favorites, first time in over 30 years that they have been favorites in Pittsburgh to win a game. They haven't won a regular season in Pittsburgh since, I believe, 1992. They haven't been 2-0 to start a season since 1993 when Bill Belichick was their coach, and the Steelers haven't lost at home on Monday Night Football, I believe, over 20 years now. But Vegas doesn't like their chances. Jenna, do you like their chances in holding on to those intangibles right there?
Steelers fans, please do not come at me for this one. And I'm going to tell you my reason why. I think the Browns win this game because I think the absence of Cam Hayward is going to play a much bigger role than we think. I think the fact that the Steelers were really unable to stop the run last week with Cam Hayward, and now you're going to be without a guy that brings so much, not only with his performance on the field and his athletic ability, but those intangible type of things and his leadership quality. I think that the Browns just are too much of a powerful running attack, and we've been talking about the run defense ad nauseum, I feel like, for what's been at least a season now. If not, I'm trying to find this stat here. Yeah, here it is. The Steelers against the Browns, it all comes down to how they perform against Nick Chubb. The Steelers are 5-0-1 when they hold Chubb under 80 yards. They're 0-3 when he goes over 80 yards. There's a big factor there. So I don't see them being able to stop the run completely. I do have confidence in the ability for the for the offense to bounce back. I think we are not going to see the same Kenny Pickett we saw against the 49ers, but I just think that it all comes down to the run game for me. So I'm going Cleveland in a tight one, and I hope I'm proven wrong. I really, really do. I want to make that very clear on this show.
I was going to pick the Browns this week until I saw that Jack Conklin was out for the season and 4th-round rookie DeJuan Jones is going to be the starting right tackle across from T.J. Watt. And this is what led me on top of this fact, and it's something we talked about with Tony Serino on the Wednesday show this week. The Browns last year, when the Steelers beat them 28-14 at the end of the season, when Deshaun Watson was their quarterback, when Nick Chubb still ran for 6.4 yards per carry against the Steelers, but like you said, was held under 80 yards. Why? Because the Steelers got some points on the board before the Browns did, and the Steelers got to Deshaun Watson 7 times. Yeah. Yes, Cam Hayward won't be there, but TJ Watt will be. He's much better than he was this time last year with his injury. Alex Highsmith also got the best of Jedrick Wells on the other side. I truly think the Steelers' pass rush is what keeps them alive in this game, but I see this being a very tight game, a game like 21-18 type of win for the Steelers. And if the Steelers lose, I won't be shocked by it because I do think that this, like you said, the Browns run game is going to be a huge focus for this. And I'm not sure if they're best suited to take care of it. But if they can use other circumstances to neutralize the Browns being able to run the ball, that could be the difference in this game. But both of us have this being a close, ugly one there at Acrisure Stadium. And we'll both be there to cover that game at Acrisure Stadium. Jenna, let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Well, I'm very excited to be there covering this game, so definitely stay tuned for that. You can find me on Twitter at Jenna Harner 11, Instagram Jenna_Harner, and locally here on WPXI channel 11. So tune in for all of your game coverage, things along those lines, leading into this matchup against the Browns.
Absolutely. She's Jenna Harner from Channel 11 WPXI. I'm Chris Carter of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'll be covering the backyard brawl where West Virginia takes on Pitt in Saturday night. And then I'll be back in Pittsburgh being able to be on Channel 11's Final Word Sunday night. And then the very next night, I'll be at Acrisure Stadium covering Steelers Browns along with Jenna and the full team of all the Pittsburgh media members. Thanks again, Jenna, for joining on. Thank you for tuning on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Check me out next Monday. We'll have another preview version of other storylines I think will be important to this game right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.